Hello and welcome to week 11 of Paula's Run Club Road to London with me, Paula Radcliffe.
And me, Christopher Topson.
And this week we will be catching up with Harry Judd to see how he's getting on with his training partner Gabstone. And we have that much waited for episode coming up, chat with Steve Peters, everything you need to know about the psychology of the marathon. And this episode is the first one sponsored by Heiko, a brand new hydration company that basically they have your hydration covered. Tomo, it's great because it is a full spectrum electrolyte drink, and they've really got the balance of those 6 electrolytes plus vitamins and minerals to support you through everyday life, and you can get it in a can. And that's exciting too. I know you've been enjoying the cans. I guess mixed berry is your favourite. They do tropical as well.
How did you know that, Paula? It's like
Because
I've
you told me a lot of times.
I know. No, exactly. I think we will get into the science of the product, but for anyone listening that hasn't heard of this brand, I think it is striking how good it tastes when you first meet it, or taste it, should I say, and then when you learn about the science as well, it really is backed by science with that great taste. So it's really exciting to work with them, really exciting to introduce Heiko to the world for a lot of people, and I'm looking forward to hopefully lots of people getting to know them, getting to taste it over the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a challenge for their founder, Catherine Wilkins, who's also running the marathon for the first time. It's been a challenge to get that balance right, but she wanted to make sure that there wasn't an overdose of any of the main electrolytes, that it is a perfect balance for your body. And you can, of course, try it out, because we do, why wouldn't we, have a discount code, and that is PRC, and you head to drinkheiko.co.uk and you can get 20% off your purchases. As we said, there's tropical and mixed berry sachets available, and those cans as well. So well worth trying out. Someone who's obviously got their hydration absolutely sorted is Jacob Kiplimo, of course. He went out in Lisbon Half Marathon and, shall we say, underlined the fact that he maybe didn't like not having his previous world record set in the marathon, in the half marathon, and he ran 57:20 there, Tomo. Extremely impressive, and still full of running at the end.
No, he did. I think there was a couple of things, because to put it into perspective for listeners, he ran 56:42 with the world record wasn't allowed due to they felt like the lead car was too close to him and gave him too much air resistance. Now that's a sort of 38 seconds differentiation to what he ran on the weekend without this car, so maybe that does or doesn't prove what World Athletics were saying. But either way, like you say, he had a bee in his bonnet. He's got the world record 57:20. My only thing is, I hope that's not been at the expense of his London Marathon aims, because Sarway is going to be out for lack of a better word terminology, blood at London Marathon, and hopefully Kiplimo hasn't got into too good a half marathon shape when his long-term goal is the London Marathon coming up. But we'll see. He's got his world record. He's happy. He looked amazing. And maybe we'll see his sub 57 with a ratified world record soon. By the way, he, like you say, the way he looked at the end, looks like he had more in the bag.
Well, that's right. I mean, it looked like he had that 40-second buffer maybe still left over a little bit there. So maybe he is keeping a little bit still left in the tank for London Marathon. Certainly, it is really hotting up, and I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to see those elite races. I'm always really excited to see the marathon, full stop, but to see those elite races. And let's hope that everybody stays on the right course and runs the right course, because yet again, it was a bit of deja vu in the LA marathon. No, I don't think there was nobody at fault for this one other than the person who managed to get themselves onto the course. There was a Kenyan fan, should we say, who was on the course and then ran off the course following the lead vehicle, which has to come off the course going into the finish. And the guy leading the race followed her, didn't she? Have you seen the video, Tommy?
No, I've seen the video, and I had to take a double take to figure out, because a lot of onus that ride is put on the organisers to get it right. But there was a fan on the course that clearly confused the lead runner, and so in that confusion, because she was ahead with a flag, like you say, a Kenyan flag, almost cheering him on, and he got distracted and followed the lead cars who were leaving the course in the last 400 metres. But what made it sad was when he got back on the course and he lost a good 10 seconds and the momentum, he was beaten by 0.1 of a second. He was literally pipped, and there is call for the organiser to do the right thing and honour his victory and the prize money. But it just shows you why we have security at the end of big races like London Marathon, where there is no way you can get on that course in that last mile or two, or for most of the course, because when you're that tired, you can easily get distracted and pulled away. And I almost kind of go, you don't want to start blaming anyone, but it was another case of so close to the previous incident where sad, and it did clearly affect the finishing result.
Yeah, I mean, without any doubt, the guy chasing in second, it was an American guy, wasn't it? And he clearly saw what happened.
Yes.
And in that moment, I wouldn't say you take advantage of, but you have to think, okay, there's an opening there that wasn't there 10 seconds ago because he's gone the wrong way, he's come back on course. So that gave a little bit of energy there, and big kick in the stomach, because it's hard to stop, turn around, go round a barrier and get yourself back on course and pick up at the end of a marathon. And like you say, big onus is on those organisers to get it right, because athletes spend ages investing their time and effort in preparing for these races. So let's make sure that the service is fully there on the day. I was at the French cross-country championships over the weekend, and I have to say, big hats off to the organisers there. Absolutely brilliant cross-country course. I'd like to see a European cross maybe held there. It was at Carré-Plouquet in Brittany. So not too far for the GB team just to pop across the channel, and really proper old school cross country. There was not a moment's respite on that course. Twisty, turny, ups and downs. Yeah, really, really good. So enjoyed being there, and well done to the organisers. So we are extremely grateful to Steve Peters, author of The Chimp Paradox, has helped so many top athletes and athletes of all levels, taking time out of his very busy schedule on the way to deliver a lecture, I think it was, at Cambridge University. Steve Peters' interview coming up, and you are listening to Paula's Run Club, brought to you by Heiko, the hydration company that have your hydration covered. And now, without any further ado, it gives me so much pleasure to announce that, back by popular request, after all of his helpful insights from last year, we have Professor Steve Peters joining us to give basically us your helpful insights onto mental coping techniques, particularly during the marathon. We have so many listeners who are attacking the marathon for the first time, or revisiting it after things went extremely well the first time, or not so good the first time. And whichever, thank you so much for helping us to bring some techniques to them to help them get through that marathon.
Thanks for inviting me, Paula. It's always good to see you. Always good. I apologise to people watching about the viewing, because I'm sat in the car, I'm travelling, so just to explain, people think it's not my office, I'm not living here.
That's okay. I think as many marathoners, we're kind of used to adapting on the fly, and that's kind of, you have to be able to have that capacity, as you're demonstrating, to fit all the things that you want to do into your life. And maybe that's a good place to start, is how do you prioritize when we're all juggling as many things as we are doing? How do you prioritize or find the things that are the most important to you and make sure that those are at the fore and you mentally and physically can perform at your best?
Okay, what I'm going to do, step back one step there, because when we go into that, if you're trying to prioritize, I think there are prerequisites to be able to do that. And so I'm going to go, because I'm a nerd, to neuroscience, and say that if you look at the systems in our brain, if we start off with the idea that, and I know might call it the chimp bit, the orbitofrontal cortex, just above our eyebrows, cannot accept reality. And that's really important when we come into the marathon or anything we do in life. What it does, it writes the script of what it thinks should be, and then it compares it to reality, which creates a lot of frustration, anger, disappointment. So if you imagine you're going to go to a marathon and you're saying, right, what should be is everything runs to time. You mentioned flexibility. Nobody's going to get in my way. I can do a proper warm-up and stretch if that's what people do. And then suddenly you can't. They say, no, you've got to come over here. You've got to do this. So what happens then is a lot of people lose a lot of energy because they can't go with the flow. Their brain has written what should happen. And then when it doesn't happen, they get quite upset by it. And I see this a lot. So one of the things I do when I'm working with athletes at any level is to say you must set off in the right place. So we go over to the dorsolateral areas of the brain, which I class as the human, and just say, right, that part of the brain cannot do what the other part does. What it does is says, it is what it is. What's my plan? So if you think you're now being told you can't do your stretching, you've got to get out the way, there's too many people around, wherever it is, instead of reacting, you now respond by saying it is what it is. So that's gone, go with the flow. And generally speaking, whatever we're doing in life, whenever we start with that position, we do well. If we start with the position of what should be and what could happen, we start getting into difficulties. So I think before we prioritize what we need to do, we have to get the mindset that even if we do the priorities, it may not happen. Otherwise, you'll do a priority list, and then when you can't fulfill it, you're going to get into more difficulties. And again, it'll all untangle. So is that clear? If not,
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
That's
Really
can I as well, because it's interesting, because this feeds into, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the Olympic freestyle skier Eileen Gu's interview after one of her medals? So she talked about, and it was a really amazing interview, and she's 22, like such a mature head on her shoulders, and she talked about building trust with self and sport being very honest and constantly proving to yourself you can handle situations, and therefore possibly links to what you're saying about being adaptable, because it's building that trust with self that even if things don't go right, you can still do it. And sport and training and anything is very honest in building that evidence over affirmation, to use her words. So is that kind of also linked to it in terms of the ability to go, it's okay, that didn't work out, or being flexible is also part of trusting yourself that you can be adaptable in that, and that trust within your abilities?
Yeah, so I'm going to again step on and say, what's that based on?
Okay.
And you're right, I'm not, and again, when I say this, it's only my opinion and experience. It doesn't mean it resonates with everyone. I'm saying what I've seen in research and working with people over the last 30, 40 years now. What is it that successful people do? And one of the things that people bring to me when they're running, competing particularly, is they have this idea, I've got to trust that, I can do this and I've got experience, but there's something underpinning that which may be not spoken but actually thought, and that is, I always use the phrase, I'm an adult. It doesn't matter what life brings me, I can deal with the consequence, and that's a subtle difference. So if you go into an event and say, whatever happens, I'm going to think through the consequence, and if I can deal with the consequence, the fear will go, because now I'm not frightened to challenge myself. If it doesn't work, I can deal with it. Yeah. So it's not just about saying I can do it, and sometimes I'll get it right, and it's about saying, if I don't manage it, have I got a safety net? And the safety net is quite simple. I'm an adult. I can deal with this. So I'm going to push that point, because I get very frequently people say, I fear failure. And let's go to the marathon, relevant to what you're saying. And that is, again, I've worked with marathon runners, and one of the things is I fear not being able to finish. I fear failure. And I'm saying again, it's the same principle. There's no such thing, I'm standing ground, as fear of failure. What you're saying is, I fear not being able to deal with the consequences of failure. That's a very different proposition, because if you come to me and say I fear failure, it's like saying I like the colour blue. I can't change your mind. It's something you do. So if you say I fear failure, it's a statement that I can't argue with. What I can do, if you say, right, I understand it underpinning that, I fear the consequence and not being able to deal with that, I can address that immediately by finding what consequence do you think you can't deal with? And then we get into the nitty-gritty of, I fear people will think I'm a failure. I might perceive myself as a failure. And now I can address that by simple means, by saying things like, the fact you're attempting it is fantastic success. So you can redefine your success, redefine your failure. And that then starts to lift the pressure. And instead of a threat of entering the marathon, it now becomes an opportunity. And I've got my safety nets in place.
So in that way, does it help? I mean, we talk a lot about trying to balance enough nerves to use the adrenaline to get the best out of yourself, with too much that will start to detract from the performance. So to that way, going to the start line with the mindset, okay, I'm going to give it my best, I'm going to lay it all out there, that's all I can do, that's all that's within my control. Does that help?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of what you gave there, Paul, is another, what I'd call them, the foundation stones for success, and there are a number of them. So again, it's dealing with the consequences and thinking, have I got an answer for each one if it doesn't work out? It's dealing with the idea you go with the flow. It's dealing with, I've got an ability to do things and all I can do is my best. There's a lot of them that need to be put in place to resonate with, so that people get the best out of themselves.
And to go just to revisit, 'cause I'm fascinated by the fact that it's the consequences of failure. To that end, actually, as you're coming through races and maybe more likely in training, is it better to almost try and make those mistakes so that you know how to deal with the consequences of it? So to push yourself to the point that perhaps you get it wrong in training and in judging pace, to be able to not do it, learn how not to do it in the race?
I always say that when I've 400 meters is my event, and I know that, and when I've coached people for that, I always get them to do what they can't do. So go off too quick, or hold back and it's too slow, and you're right. You learn what you can't do, but again, I'm sounding like a parrot here. I'm going to underpin that by saying we're going to go deeper than that one, because underpinning that is the idea that if we see everything in life as a learning point, we become successful. We don't see failure anymore. And if you go to now, I'm going off piste, to children and doing a lot of work with Cambridge actually, and we look at developing how they develop their mindset, we know that failure is the best way to learn, because you learn it deep and you don't repeat. So it's seen then as a success. So if you fail on something, you attach a learning point, and then that becomes a real plus. Whereas if we go with, especially with children, you must get it right, all it does is create stress, because they think that failure, there's no redemption from it. When the reality is, what you're saying with the running is, learn what you can't do. But if you did do the marathon this time and you do go off a bit quick and you end up sort of like walking and you think this is a real struggle, then you say, enjoy it, but it's a learning point. Next time I'll do one, I won't be doing that. So it becomes positive.
Does because it's something that I my wife, who's my biggest kind of analyst of me as a person, and she often, when I first got with her, when I was kind of going through some struggles from my career, it's interesting you say about the failure and about how you can learn. And I wondered, and she talked about, and she would say, and she was right, that I almost got drawn to failure as a safety mechanism of a way of dealing with the fact that it kind of, I would look for subconsciously injuries or things to kind of trip me up, because it avoided that fear of failure. So I wonder if there's a going too far with that kind of failure, but or then again, I suppose you're reframing it rather than kind of enjoying it, I guess.
Yeah, and again, it's using the subtlety, the devil's in the detail, that yes, you can go the wrong way. What you've got there is a poor coping strategy. So you'll get in people where they'll say to me, let's say it's a footballer I'm working with, and they'll say, well, my ankle's not right, so therefore I'm allowed to fail. And that can actually be a negative coping strategy. It can work, but the problem is it's a default position. If it's not going well on the pitch, then suddenly you grab your ankle and walk off. So you can say, oh, that can turn on you. If somebody were able to say, and this is the subtlety, right, I know my ankle is actually a bit dicey, but all I can do is focus on what I'm doing and keep going as long as I can. And I know that that's my answer. If people ask, why were you not up to standard, I can give them an answer. Then it becomes a positive way of doing it. It's not one I would use. In other words, we're using safety nets when you think my mind's not going to let me. And like I've said at the beginning, I have to work with people and go with the flow. If that's what they're going to give me, then I'll say, okay, it's not ideal, but we're going to go with it. All right. So we know there is a risk that it'll come back to bite us on the bum. But if it doesn't, it'll work. I want to go back, Paula, because I want people to get most out of this. Something you said, and it mixed up potentially adrenaline with anxiety. And that was, when you get these adrenaline boosts, everyone's going to be different. What I do know is research shows it makes no difference. Adrenaline actually doesn't make a difference. It's mindset that makes the difference. Adrenaline is we experience it, so we attribute things wrongly to it. So the mindset can give you adrenaline where it's actually excitement, and you interpret that as being really good. And adrenaline is not important for performance. And I think the research was done on 110-meter hurdlers, where you'd think there it's crucial you get a good adrenaline kick, but it isn't. Your muscles will function with or without it. It's an alerting, but your muscles will do what they do.
Yeah.
So well, let's just look and say, what if people say, well, yeah, but today I have got adrenaline. I always use the term adrenalized to make sure you're not saying anxious. And I think this sounds a bit like I'm being semantics, but it isn't. The brain works with words. So if I say to you, I'm about to run the marathon, I'm adrenalized, I can attach that to positive, even though it's unpleasant feelings of my heart's pounding, I've got dry mouth, but I know this is warming me up, and I know it's only adrenaline, makes no difference, and within 2 or 3 minutes, it's probably going to go, because that's all adrenaline lasts. However, if I say to you, oh, I'm getting a bit anxious or I'm a bit nervous, now my brain has picked up a negative response. And unfortunately, you set off what I affected with the chimp circuits, which means you're now going to go down a rabbit hole, because it will take you there, because you alerted the brain to say something isn't right. I'm going to have to fight this. And so just to distinguish the difference between adrenaline and nerves or anxiety is adrenaline is a physical experience and how we interpret it up to us. Anxiety is a cognitive experience. In other words, we have beliefs that are not helping us or fears that we're not addressing, and that results in more adrenaline. So someone who interprets adrenaline as anxiety creates problems. So we have to get it right and say adrenaline is unpleasant, but it's not anxiety. So no nerves.
Brilliant. And to that end, I kind of take it, because you gave us some great techniques last time on coping techniques within the marathon. And we talked about how going in prepared. So going in with the mindset, okay, there are going to be rough patches within the marathon. So I have ready my technique that I'm going to bring into play as and when I need it. And I'm ready and prepared for those. So when they come, I recognize them and I implement my technique. Is that a good way to go into the marathon?
Yeah, and I think again, everyone's unique, so I can only generalize here. So I would try things like, say you were going in and you think you've got your pace right. Obviously, I can't coach, so you're telling me I've got it right. So mentally, I'd say some simple things work for most people. I always say to climb a mountain, you look at the top of it and say that's where we're aiming, then never look at the top again. Always look behind you. It sounds contradictory. And the same with the marathon. I think most people benefit from looking back and saying, I've now covered the first distance. I've now got to look back and say what you've done rather than what's in front of me. Because even like going back to my 400 meters, if you think I've covered 300 as you hit the home straight, which is going to be painful, we know that's going to be painful, you're in lactic. But if you think I've covered 300s, your brain picks up a positive, and that will actually release positive hormones and neurotransmitters. Whereas if you hit 300 and go, there's still 100 to go, that's when people have these negative cognitions and start struggling. So one way is always look back. And then there are other general ones, such in the 400 meters. It's going to hurt. It's meant to hurt, And so a marathon is never going to be comfortable. You're doing something which is almost crazy, with all respect. But it's probably not as crazy as 400 meters. But we do it. We want to. So we accept there is an amount of pain. But everybody gets that. Everybody gets it, and it's not going to do any damage as long as you keep going at a steady pace and think, right, and as you know, you can tell them more than me, it can suddenly release again. You get a second wind and you think, oh,
for sure.
So you have to think, right, we just keep going until that happens.
And in terms of perspective, can it help? I mean, I used to find that it helped me to turn it into a game. So, yeah, it is hurting, it's really hurting, but I'm going to play with that and try and use everything I can to push that to the sides for as long as possible, and not think about it. So actually making it that game rather than the more all-important thing of this is everything I've invested the last 6 months into, helped to just bring it down a little bit and focus on what I needed to do.
Yeah, and what you're doing there is an excellent technique in that when we're working with the orbitofrontal areas, the chimp brain, it gets overwhelmed very quickly. So unless it feels, and it works with feeling, not fact, unless it feels it can take the next steps, then it will create a block and start to go into flight mode to stop this. So when we work with this, for example, with children tidying their toys up even, and if you look and it's absolute like a bomb site with toys all across the house, if you say tidy it all up, they're overwhelmed immediately, so you'll get a kickback. If you make it a game, as you said, and said, right, what we're going to do is tidy just this corner up, and you do it as fast as you can, they get excited, because what you've really done is that overwhelming feeling has gone. I can do this. I feel I can do this quite quickly, and there's a reward. So you're right. And in races, certainly when I was in the velodrome, worked with the cyclists, I've had things like pursuits where they're doing, like, say, 16 laps. And then I'd break it down into stages. So you'd have 4, 4, 4, and another 4. And then what you do is I used to attribute colours to them. So they said, in this colour, it's going to be easy. In this colour, these are the thoughts I'm likely to generate. So you can do that in a marathon. And I've done it with more distance runners, where you break it down into sections so that it becomes a game and say, right, what am I feeling now? And is it on target? And you know it's going to have rough patches. So yeah, what you said, I agree with.
The one of the things that because I do that as well with games, where I kind of use maths to kind of break down things into a manageable bite size. A lot what you're alluding to, but one of the quite often, because I would say I'm not as natural to the marathon as Paula or a lot of runners. I'm kind of much more of a 5K, 10K. So I'd find myself get quite overwhelmed in marathons quite frequently, and I would found myself quite usefully almost checking out, almost removing myself from what I was doing to calm myself down, and before putting in the games, so to speak. But one of the things I noticed when I kind of removed myself and almost gave myself a break of just relax and stop trying to fight, that it was never as the tail off was never as bad as I imagined it would be, because you feel like if you stop fighting, you're going to drop a minute per mile suddenly, or a huge drop off, but it's never quite that severe. And so that kind of realization, checking out a little bit, it's not that bad. And secondly, I now feel like I've got energy to put into a game, or I'll break it down, and then I sort of slowly build myself back up. But I felt that kind of taking almost like a mental step back helped me take 3 steps forward.
Yeah. And again, what you're demonstrating is the uniqueness of you. So you're saying, I've worked out what works for me. And that's so crucial that often when people come to me, they say, right, tell me what to do. And I'm stuck. And I do remember when I first started in sport, which I say is well over 20 years ago now, with elite level. And I remember Dave Brailsford saying to me, what do we say to them when they go into an Olympic final? And I said, I've no idea. And I remember being horrified and saying, you're the psych. And I said, David, it doesn't work that way. I can't say do this, because they have to tell me what works for them. Mm-hmm. So I work with them individually to say, right, that does work. We're going to stick with this plan. So what you're doing is a uniqueness that, it may not work for everyone, but it will work for a lot of people. So I would offer that to people and say, right, I've worked with someone who said this worked with him. What do you think? Try it out. And then we fine-tune it to the person.
So that is so helpful. I mean, one of the things that I really think a lot of people need to touch on is how do you handle the disappointment? So what do you do after a big event hasn't gone to plan to pick yourself up, draw out the learnings from it if you can, and move on? I mean, I'm a big believer, and I think I probably learned this from you actually, in terms of taking what you can learn from it and then processing the emotions, not packaging them up and keeping them locked up in some corner of your brain as baggage to move forward.
Yeah, so two points now is, one is, if I'm working with someone and they've come in early enough, like the Olympics, it's a privilege to do this. So you work for a 4-year cycle. It isn't just coming at the last minute, which often is what I get, and I've just got to fight my corner and say I can only offer what I offer. So I would look, first of all, let's look at the potential outcomes from the marathon. Let's look at what could happen. You could run a personal best, you could run a really bad one, you could injure. Let's go through it all and have a plan of action. How would you think you're going to respond? How do you want to respond? And then how do we deal with it? So we have a plan. It's a bit like getting an injury. If you haven't got a plan, it feels like the end of the world. If you say, right, I know this is part of being an elite athlete, or even just a casual athlete, you are going to get injuries. It happens to everyone. Let's put a plan in place for when it happens. That's the first point. So I like to get plans of what happens at the end if it's disappointing and we don't get. So we've got all potentials planned. However, that's not going to stop you from reacting. So the second point is, you're going to get a reaction, so expect it. And we say, well, how does the brain react? Because clearly what we'd like to do is just go, it was disappointing, there's another race. But that's not the way the brain works. So the brain's going to go through almost a grief or a loss reaction, which means, and it depends on the person, it may get angry, it may get despondent, it may get upset. But if you've planned, you know that deep down at a deep level, we've got a plan and all will be well in the next month or 2 months. But in the meantime, I've got to go through these emotions, so now let's work out how they work. And definitely don't squash them and put them in a corner of your mind. That is asking for big trouble. You express it. So you say all the things, and often when people go through it and express, my experience has been a lot of them come to the end of it saying, that's ridiculous, and they get perspective on it. So by talking it out, they actually get it out the system, and then they rationalize and bring perspective in. But it still means you will have to do it maybe more than once. So I'm not saying you'll just sort of walk away from it, but understanding your mind is doing this, not you, can help people, and you've got to do that little bit of a grief reaction and express it all.
It's funny because I just a point on that is that coaching I've done, or me being coached, there's been comments when they finish a marathon of it didn't go well, I know, and the words would come out the mouth, I know I shouldn't, but can I run 1 in 4 weeks to make amends? But it's that, exactly to your point, them hearing themselves say, I know I shouldn't, and you almost have to sit back and wait for that to kind of absorb. And I totally get what you mean by that, because I've done it with myself of, you say to your coach, I know I shouldn't, but can I do this? And you're almost, they're just literally being there just to listen. Don't need to say anything, because you'll come to your own realization if you say it out loud. If you say it internally, it never. But I totally get what you're saying there.
Sorry, Paul, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say I learned that rather novel way. I won't mention who this was. I sat in a car with an athlete who was about to go into a world championships in a certain sport. And as we got in the car, I was about to launch into, right, let's get you mentally prepared. And the athlete actually just started letting off into the air all these negative thoughts, and I didn't speak. I couldn't. So the athlete went on and on for about 10 minutes and slowly listened to themselves, came round and went, I can do this. This is crazy. Got out the car and actually went on to do extremely well. And afterwards, I thought, well, I didn't get to talk. And they came up to me and said, Steve, in the car, that's one of the best sessions we've ever had. And it taught me a lesson that, getting people to say it themselves is more powerful than me going, right, let's take a deep breath. Let's look at what we're going to do. It's far more important the person owns it.
Yeah. And that perspective, can that help? Because particularly in the marathon, I mean, in any sort of build-up, it's never perfect. And there are things that go wrong. Injuries crop up, you get sick, something in the family happens. And it's getting to that mindset of, I've done what I can do. And I'm 100% healthy when I'm on the start line, rather than I've done all the preparation that I could do, but I'm not healthy on the start line. So getting that perspective, what's the best way to kind of pull all that together in order to be able to say, I guess I'm on the start line, it is what it is, I'm in the shape that I'm in, and I'm ready to go.
Again, when I very first started doing this work this wasn't in sport, it was patients. So we're now going back over 30 years ago. And as a young doctor, I realised then that you've got to allow the patient to learn the skill. It's not just me coming in going, just say it is what it is and go with the flow. It doesn't work. And I realised that 30 odd years ago that the patient's got to practice. So I would say, right, when you knock your coffee over, I want you to say straight away, it is what it is. What's the plan? And so they became an emotional skill to say, go with the flow of life. So by the time you get to working with them, which I do with athletes, I go off the athletics field or the cycling, wherever they're in, I go away from it and go, let's do general life skills. So we're going to then go to our sport and apply them. So therefore they will say, I hope, I've got the skill to go, hey, I don't work with what should be, I work with what is. I'm approaching the line. I'm either going to run with the injury or I'm not. Make your mind up. I'm going to run. Right, it is what it is. Let's do the best. But they've learnt that skill. It isn't just me going in at the last minute.
I absolutely love that. I think that can go to anything in life. I'm going to put that in with my kids at school, isn't it?
I was just thinking about
It is what it is. Do what you can do on that test. One of the questions that we've had a lot from people writing in, Steve, is how to implement ideal recovery techniques, particularly for dual goals. So we have a lot of people, particularly as the marathon majors are getting more and more popular, they'll be running Boston and then 6 days later they'll be running London Marathon. How do they prioritize? Because they can't run both of those at maximum effort. They have to be able to choose. And how do you do that?
Okay, again, this is all preemptive to say, right, if I do this one, how will I feel and how will I think at the end of it if I've done everything there and it doesn't go so well? And then I say, oh, I've used my energy up. But this is all about risk taking and saying nothing is a given in life, especially sport and running. It's probability. So again, I wouldn't, but this is just me, I'm very sort of rational, logical. I wouldn't allow them to just go, I'll just make a decision. I'd say, no, we're going to go through consequence of doing the first one. It didn't go well. It did go well. You got injured. How, right, let's look at all possibilities, because therefore your mind's not searching because it'll find the one you haven't addressed. If you do that, and it sounds quite hard, but I would spend an hour doing that because it means you've thought it through clearly with all consequence, including your emotional abilities, where you think, yeah. And then you said there's always risk in life. Let's learn not to be risk averse, but manage risk. And so that's, again, another skill I'd work with them on before we get to that stage. So it happens all the time, Paula, where people say, any elite athlete and recreational athletes, to get the best out of yourself, you're always on the edge of injury. And you've got to accept that is part of the risk, and it can't be predicted. So therefore we say, right, we accept the risk, let's move forward and not keep looking at the risk. And that's what I find athletes tend to do. They keep going over, they make a decision to run the Boston Marathon and not the second one. And then they keep going back to me going, oh, I'm not sure. So that's why I think, no, we're doing it all. So you are sure.
So you check them all over and then you pick your priorities. And I think I want to revisit what you said earlier on about when you're struggling in the marathon or whatever point, you look at what you have done and to go to the mindset right before the marathon. So the day before. I always used to like to look back over the training that I'd done. So basically, this is what I have done. I know I'm ready because I've done all of this, and that's going to help me. So it's kind of like that mindset within the race, but before you go to sleep the night before, you're kind of revisiting all the things that you've done well, not the things that haven't gone to plan, all the things that you've done well to go in on a high. Is that something that can help anyone?
I think it is. And again, there is the potential pitfall where they think, I think I should have done more of this. And that's not helpful. I think that's where you have to say, right, which I do say to athletes, when's the last bit of training that's actually going to make a difference to your fitness and readiness? And most people say it'll be at least a week, if not 2 weeks before. So I said at that point, I train people to change their mindset. So we don't analyse, we say it is now done. I've done everything right. I've taken a risk. It may not be the right trade. Maybe it's irrelevant. We start from here, and now we have a new mindset for the last week, and then we meet the problems that the last week brings.
I love this interview. Just brilliant. It always is with you. You're fantastic. But because there's so many. I'm retired now, so which is a shame because there's so many things I would love to revisit and go back on. Like one of them when you mentioned
retired at your age, spring chicken. I'm still running. Come on.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
Perfect
Sorry.
example.
Okay, I've redirected my my focus of energy to be more diverse. Shall we say that then, rather than retired? But the thing that always tripped me up, I think, quite often, and I think a lot of elites can be guilty of this, is when they're getting ready for an aim. They only tend to go down the route of the perfect either training program or the perfect outcome. So before London 2012, all I had in my head, and again, I think this is part of the problem, is I wanted to make myself believe I could medal, and you kind of using so much positive energy to go, I can achieve this, that I started to create this. It had to be perfect to get there. So when I did get injured 12 weeks out, the panic or the way I reacted was, and you've kind of alluded to thinking about the different scenarios, it became more of a panic than a how do I work with this, because it was the only path I could see to get where I wanted to go. And I think if I'd have created lots of different pathways, I'd have handled that a lot better. And I think it's really interesting when you're hearing that I kind of I was just too blinkered on one thing. But yeah, so anyway, I'm kind of applying a lot what you're saying, and I'm kind of therapizing myself here, but yeah, you see what I'm saying.
Again, Chris, like you said, people say we get physically fit for it, and then they ask me, what do I do? And I think they feel like as a psych, I'm coming in going, you can do it, and I don't. we start a year out to say, let's go exactly what you've done. Let's look at the possibilities and what the plan is. So we're injured with 12 weeks to go. Then we look at, right, what would happen? We do all of this. This is the mental preparation. And so clearly, on that case, you weren't doing a mental preparation. You waited till it happened. The second one was, we know that research shows, if you focus, great, your dream is the top of the mountain, a medal. That's it. Now get your eyes off that and focus on the process of what you need to do to get there. But we know that people that focus on the process tend to win. People who focus on winning tend to lose. So, and there's a real reason mentally why that happens. So once you've decided, I want to get that medal, right, let's look at what I need to do and tick the boxes. And all I'm going to do is focus on the process. So there were two aspects to there that you could have worked on at that point. I've got to come back, Paula, because I think people are listening. You know, when I said look back, that's 90% of people. But you'll get a group, a subset who say, no, I like to think, and I've only got this far to go now.
That's me.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You have to say, so you as an athlete and working with you, I'm saying, no, because you're a fighter. You know, and you're saying, I'm going to keep going till I chew it all up. So therefore, I wouldn't suggest look back. But most people tend to not be that. They tend to say, I get there, but I haven't got that confidence. So looking back actually usually helps the people who lack the confidence in the fight. So everyone's unique. You can't say it.
I mean, I think in the moment helps as well for me. For me to think, right, okay, I am where I am, and it's all going according to plan, and this is all I've got left to do. Yeah. So I guess I kind of am jumping through that process of what I've done, because that's implicit in that, because I am here. And I've got here, so I've only got to get there now. I think it's kind of breaking it down like that. But I think there are so many gems. I mean, we could keep talking to you all day, Steve. But I think also what you've given us, people can apply to anything. So I'm thinking of an example of a female athlete who suddenly gets a period the morning of the race, or it doesn't come when it's supposed to come the day before. It is what it is. We're there now. I've done it before. I've done it like this in training. I'm not going to let this upset me. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I'm taking from this. And as ever, huge thank you for sparing your extremely valuable time in giving all of us.
It's a privilege. It's great to meet you both again. And I hope people did get things. I'd just finish by saying, obviously, I'm pushing the mental side of it, and it's never easy. It's a skill, no different to running. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. You just have to keep practicing. The more you practice, the better you get. So I wish everyone luck. And if they didn't like what I said, throw it out with the rubbish and just pick out bits that work for them. But don't neglect the mental side. Anyway, thank you so much.
Absolute star. Thank you.
You are such a good bloke, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow, that as ever was brilliant, Tomo. Thank you once again to Heiko for bringing us that interview with Steve Peters. So many techniques that you can take away, not just into training. That's the thing that struck me. It's into daily life. Like even I'm stuck in traffic, right? Okay, it is what it is. I'm not going to stress about it. I'm just going to do what I can do with the time that I'm sat here doing nothing and process things and prepare myself to be able to cope for being late once I get there.
But it's funny, like, because he kind of touched upon like kids tidying a room, and I've been learning to reset my own tolerance boundary, shall we say. So like, you know, spilling milk or something on a carpet is not it can't be a stress, because then the reaction becomes a friction between your relationship, and it doesn't need to escalate to that. It's spilled, it's happened, move on. And I think for me, having kids is, and I'm only using it because it was kind of mentioned around it, let it just roll with it. And I think having kids is a very good way of applying that in everything, and in running or whatever you do, of it is what it is. Go and get a mop and clean it up. It's just a carpet. I'm using that as an example, but there's so many things like that in regularly around kids that you do reset the boundaries. And it's the same thing with sport or aims or anything you're doing. Yeah.
Just staying absolutely flexible with it. It's like when you're running up a hill and you're basically going to go, okay, I'm not going to look at the top. I'm just going to look a couple of steps in front of me. I'm going to focus on that because I'm going to get to the top. It's going to be hard, but I am where I am on the hill right now, and I'm going to keep attacking this bit of it. I mean, there were so many bits. I had a fascinating weekend, as I spoke about, with my son Raf at the French National Cross Country Championships. I mean, they've put the French and the Belgians together. Amazing course, really, really proper cross country course, like so challenging. We had the mud in there, had the rolling hills, had the cambers in there, really, really technical. And if I'm honest, Raf wasn't at a point where he was ready for that, then it didn't help. Things didn't go according to the plan. But there's so many bits of that. I can just sit him down and say, okay, it is what happened, and you're going to draw the positives from it. And I think that point that Steve touched on about processing the emotions are really, really important. But also the part where he talked about the athlete in the car who just talked and just vented. I think that's just something that can really apply as a parent generally, not just in relating to races, but when your kid comes in from school and you can see they're upset, instead of trying to project onto them all the reasons why they might be upset, let them vent it all out, and then somewhere in that you'll find the actual reason.
But there's a saying that, and I do like this saying around, and again, I apologize, I'm bringing it into raising kids, but it applies to what you've just said, is don't dismiss your child's emotion. It's not about dismissing it. You allow them to have the emotion they want to have, and then you help them rebuild it in a functional, moving forward way. And it's the same with an athlete, exactly as you just said, because the most powerful thing is to allow the athlete to vent. And I have to say, I coach. I've been an athlete on both sides, and I, as a coach, selfishly would sometimes over-talk because I'm sorting out my own emotion to what's just happened. And it's not about my emotion, it's about the athlete, and allowing them to say whatever they feel comfortable they need to say, and not feeling like they need to say what I want to hear. They say what they feel. They can then slowly, as Steve said, bring themselves to a very clever point where they self-emotionally figured it out. And I think it is such a powerful thing, because I talked a long time ago to a group of people that, and I didn't really fully understand what I was saying. I just knew that in my most powerful moments as an athlete, it was when I figured it out in my own mind rather than someone talked me through it.
Oh,
And I said, you become your own therapist. And I didn't really fully appreciate quite what I was trying to say, but as you hear Steve and listen to Steve, I can now understand what I meant by that. I could get it, but I couldn't. And it is, you are your own best partner in crime is the best, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
definitely. And the basically learning through failure. I mean, if you think about it, that's what athletes do time and time and time again. I mean, think someone like Jake Whiteman, who's got himself in that position so many times and never quite got it right. And then suddenly in Eugene, there he is in that position, and bang, absolute perfect execution. And it's like, you only get to that point, and people kind of underestimate because they try and get ahead of themselves in their brain, but you only get to that point by getting it wrong, or not quite managing it, rather than getting it wrong, by just trying and trying and trying. And it's that kind of is training. And I think that Steve has such a great way of just explaining it in a way that everybody can understand. Like, everyone can understand, right, okay, we're going to go through the what if, we're going to press the what if button. I love that phrase of his. So the what if, and the other takeaway of mine was, it is what it is. And I think that is particularly for the marathon. There are so many things. And even with Steve's mindset of rehearsing, what if this happens? What if that happens? You're never going to do them all. There is still going to be something else that could crop up in that marathon. And if then you're able to just say, right, it's what it is. I'm cracking on. This is what I'm doing. It is what it is. And I've got what I've got. And these are the two things I'm going to put together, and I'm going to get to the end. If there are three things that you can use, I think take that from that Steve interview.
I think the one thing, and he said this off recording at the end, which it would have been nice to hear it in the moment. And I tell the listeners something he said about how things are checked, that we're starting to reframe how we look at the mind and the power of the mind. And he actually mentioned Chris Hoy being someone who really pioneered that. And he said how we physically, if we have a weak quad, we find it accepting to kind of, right, we need to make that stronger, or a weak calf, we see that accepting. And it's actually quite a new thing to accept that actually strengthening the mind is still that muscle that needs strengthening. Because I grew up, as I know you did, in a time where, that kind of those throwaway lines of like with Daley Thompson or whatever, it was very much about being tough and not allowing yourself to have a moment of weakness. And it's not about accepting that you need to work on mental prep is not a weakness, it's a strength. And actually reframing, it's all part of that kind of full package you're trying to build. And I certainly think when I was growing up, I didn't think about the mind because it felt like a weakness to open my mind to that, and it's not. It's a very much a personal journey of strength. And I think that's where he is brilliant at kind of explaining that and helping people frame that in their mind to be a very much one of the most powerful muscles in the body.
Definitely. I mean, your mind makes you. So when you understand your mind and what makes it tick and what the strengths and weaknesses are and how to play with those, then you can really, really move yourself forward so much. I mean, many people talk about listening to the podcast over and over. I think I want to go back and listen to that again, because every time you listen to it, you're going to draw something else of value out of that. So can't thank Steve Peters enough for sharing his time and wisdom with us. And we are, of course, following our runners through on the road to London. And it is time to catch up with Harry Judd and Gab Stone and see how their training has been progressing since the last time. I think there's been a 5K PB in there somewhere.
Yeah, there has. Yeah, well, for me anyway. Last time we spoke, we were about to do a 5K with the Battersea Park run, and I was going for a PB. Gab had already sort of achieved his PB goal, but if you remember, he was going to be joining me, and we sort of alluded to the fact that it also will probably be a bit of a race. And I imagine you can tell by the fact I'm telling this story that I crossed the finish line first.
And you're not going to rub it in at all.
Well, because what he hasn't mentioned is that my PB is still faster than him.
Well, okay.
So that's why you weren't going to push him any faster.
So
How close was it?
Happened. So bear in mind, obviously, I'm doing that PB attempt on heavy legs. You know,
yeah, set the scene because everyone really cares about this detail. Go on.
They do, yeah. 5 weeks of marathon training. Hugo Fry, the running influencer, who I highly recommend you have on your podcast. He's absolutely brilliant, very funny. I met him the week before, and we just got on really well. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be in Battersea Park next weekend. Come and pace me for my PB attempt." So he did. Off he went, filming bits of it, chatting just casually. You know, it was conversational pace for him. And Gab was just on his shoulder, and I was like a couple of meters off, just struggling. But managed to kick for the last 500 meters. Was it, Gab? I can't remember. About that. But stupidly, my 5K watch beeped, and I didn't realise Parkrun had a finish line. I just thought you just stopped and just walked into that line. Yeah, so my 5K watch beeped, and I stopped. I was like, oh, and then I got shouted out like, "You're not finished." So then I carried on.
It's so amateur.
Hence why he caught
I can't believe you've owned up to that.
Hence why it's on Instagram because Hugo Fry posted it. Hence why Gab caught up with me, and hence why I didn't get 17:50.
And we got exactly the same.
I got 17:58, but I reckon about 5 seconds it lost, which would have given me a 1 second PB.
In years to come, when they look back at it, when they look back at the records, all it will show is that we got the
historians. But that's about the only positive story I have to tell, because unfortunately, after that, I've had a problem with an injury. So I've pretty much had I think it's 3 weeks since we spoke. I've had 3 weeks, and I've probably run about 5 times. And all the while, Gab has been just, absolutely smashing it. And good news is I did a long run on Saturday because I just thought my leg was feeling a bit better. And I just thought, do you know what, sod it, I'll just go out and do a long run. What have I got to lose, apart from a leg? And I managed the distance. I was so sad to see Gab just take off for another 6K. But we
did 20K together at sort of 4:45 pace, and that was pretty good. And then I had a little sort of 6 or 7K push after that, which was enjoyable.
And I thought I'll try the push. Lasted about 1.5K and was like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So partly obviously lack of fitness, and I could feel the injury slightly, just slightly. I thought, right, I'll just bank what I've done. And so just to fill you in, I'm 50-50 with London. I've obviously spoken to Chris. I'm going to give this a session a go this week, a long run a go this weekend, see where I'm at. I'm not I don't want to do it if I'm not in PB shape, so I'll see how I go over the next few weeks. But like I said, all the while, Gab's tracking nicely, and that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And what is the injury, Harry?
Do you want to go, because you've heard a lot about this? Do you want
Yeah, I can tell you all about it. It's Soleus. Many people can tell you about it.
Yeah.
It's a Soleus
overload issue?
Yeah, the Soleus overload.
Yeah, so it's not, and I called, like, I stopped early, so it's not bad, but every time I run, it was just the soleus, which is, I know you'll know, but for your listeners, the people always say, oh, what's the soleus? So it's the muscle just underneath your calf and attaches to the back of your calf. And it's obviously very important with running, takes a lot of the load. And it was painful on every step during runs. So physio's advice was to rest, which I have, and I've tried a few easies, and now, like I said, managed that long run. And it's not a serious injury, but it would have got serious if I'd carried on, which in the past I have done, and that then, as you know, leads to longer recovery. So through some experience, I decided to stop. And then it's not just the physical fallout; it's the kind of mental fallout, because you're so locked into a target and a goal, and Gab and I were pushing really hard, really enjoying it, and then suddenly it's just like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. The fittest I've ever felt, going so nicely. But you kind of just have to process that, and I've spoken to Chris a few times, and it's I'm kind of through that now, and just see where I am over the next couple of weeks, and then make a decision.
I think,
Yeah,
because this is, I was going to say, this has landed it on a good episode, because we've just had Steve Peters coming on the episode to talk about that mental side of it and processing. And I think one of the things that, to fill people in, and myself and Harry spoke about, is we're going to, it's about rethinking about the expectations over the training weeks coming up. And almost ignoring the goal of London, to then take each session as it comes, to then hopefully we'll see where we end up. But at the moment, there's no point, worrying about something that's still 7-8 weeks away. All we can do is do the best we can in the coming weeks. And as Harry said, if we do a session on this week and on the weekend, and things can kind of gather momentum that you don't, in ways you don't expect, and it's allowing yourself to have that opportunity to gather momentum rather than dismissing it before it's even happened. Because the good, and the other good thing is, and it doesn't necessarily feel like that, because you've kind of both joked, is Gab is in a nice place, but that helps you kind of see, also helps kind of pull you along with an elastic band a bit, because again, it's not necessarily about doing the same stuff, but it's just getting to the start line in a slightly different way, but hopefully with a similar result. But that's where I've got to kind of be a bit clever and a bit kind of puppeteery. But yeah,
and also, Harry, sometimes just take the view that things just happen, and that's one of the things that Steve talked about a lot, that shit will just happen, and you have to kind of deal with it and get on with it, and you have done that, and you've got over it. Sometimes it's actually meant to happen, and it works out for the best in the long run. You might have been going to overload it in training, and this thing cropping up now might actually be a blessing in disguise, in terms of you have backed off, you come back a little bit fresher. And as Chris has said, having Gab training is great, because you can jump back in for that long run and see, actually, I have missed a bit of training, but I was fine hanging in with him for 20k. So really, have I really lost that much? You probably haven't.
Well, this is it. I've been here a couple of times in marathon blocks, and this time, when everyone asks me, or friends or family, like, "Oh, how are you feeling? How's your injury?" I've just personally been quite positive about it, and just had that attitude of, it is what it is. Whereas in the past, I've really struggled with it, and I just immediately shift my focus and go swimming, get on the cross trainer, do the rehab, just keep on that positive trajectory. And don't get me wrong, when I see Gab posting on his Insta story of blocking a 31k with these great paces, it's heartbreaking. But it's part of it. And like you say, lessons to be learned. Probably maybe stacked up too much too quickly. This lower legs have always been an issue for me. I need to maybe work on, not maybe, I definitely want to. We need to work on strength there. So I'm just going to try and take the positives, learn some lessons, and move forward.
It's the mental side of it, though, isn't it? Because, say if I wasn't training, then you wouldn't have that sort of feeling, that FOMO, and that then impacts where you think you're at in your block, whereas it's just not necessarily the case. And especially with those load injuries as well, because all we're doing is running straight. and then you're fine. So you're thinking there's so little that can possibly go wrong here. But obviously something like the Soleus especially, you're just putting so much load through it, which you wouldn't ordinarily do. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you just sort of can't believe that it's happened.
Yeah.
And then you're
Well,
trying to convince
actually,
yourself that it's not injured.
Yeah.
it works harder than the calf muscle, the soleus, because it's
Yeah.
constantly working. And for distance running, it is really important. So, I mean, loaded, I'm presuming you're doing lots of loaded calf raises, straight legs, and bents. And
Yeah.
it's just calf raises, I think, pretty much, especially when you're coming back from something, Tom, it's something you can do almost twice a day, isn't it? It's not something that you think, oh, I've got to do, and then I've got to allow a certain period of time, 24 hours, 48 hours to recover and go on to the next one. You can almost go morning and evening with calf raises on the stairs and just
Yeah.
build up that
Exactly.
strength.
Yeah. The advice as well from the physio, the isometric holds as well, which obviously is not you're loading it up, but you're not doing the reps. So a lot of isometric holds and stuff. So yeah, it's and also I imagine you've been a bit lonely as well on your long runs, and
It's
but
the slow stuff. It's the slow stuff when I'm just out there plodding. Obviously, the sessions are broken up, so you sort of, you find a way of getting. Well, it's much easier to get through them. I've had a couple of beasts of a session from Tomo, where I've just whipped myself around Battersea Park on myself with Paula's rumpod in my hair and
Oh, thank you.
Just for the audience, I think it was a nice. I didn't quite expect you to go quite above, but you did the session of 2 hours 15 was. I just wanted to see where we were at a little bit, in a kind of in a naughty way as a coach. But that day, that session was. I think Harry alluded to it. Do you want to just say what that was, and then?
Yeah, so that one was it was 9 sets of 15 minutes, and so it was 15 minutes at 4:40, then 4:30, then 4:20, then 4:10 times 2, and then back to 4:40 for the last one, and it ended up averaging out at sort of 4:21 or 4:22 per kilometer, when marathon pace, if I want to go sub 3, is 4:15, 4:16. So it was a massive confidence booster. Again, it being broken up like that, I think I talked you through like the psychology of what I was thinking at every given point, and it's crazy how it changed. If you just said to me, just loop Battersea Park for 2 hours and 15 minutes, that would have been a right slog. But because I had that first set of 4:40, 4:30 working into it, and then I did the 4:10, and I thought, right, that's as bad as it's going to get. So I know I can sort of cruise a little bit through the next 4:40, 4:30. When it came to that second 4:10, there was a few grunts, trying to get through the last bit of it, and then that last 4:40 felt like super slow when it wasn't. But yeah, confidence booster more than anything else.
And I'm sure people listening can do the maths that he was slightly above pace for a bit of that to get that average
to get to that.
To get to that. So again, but again, but this is the nice thing is that I think that was lovely to see. But I was keen for Harry, even though Harry couldn't do that session. There's no reason where his fitness was at, and if he was able to, he would have been. So I kind of was. There was a little bit of me that hoped that Harry would take some reflective kind of confidence off that. And I know there still needs to be work done and get back there, but you were both ahead of the curve, because I think that was quite early, and you don't need to be doing that every week all the way through to the marathon. It was almost like getting ahead of the game so that if something happened, you could take a step back and go again. So yeah, but it was a nice session, and with the 5K and stuff, it would just be great to get you both on the start line healthy and happy. And I know you're saying you're 50-50, Harry, but I'm as far as I'm concerned, I'm full steam ahead in my head.
Yeah, no, I am. I just think for me, this year will be the first year I managed to get a place. I'm not running for a charity. I've been lucky enough to support charities for 5 years. But year on year, when you're asking people for donations, you feel bad. You're constantly asking people for money the whole time, and I thought this time I'll do it for myself. And so the focus is purely on a PB, and so the marathon is a slog, and if I am on that start line not feeling confident of breaking 3:10, I don't want to do it, because I don't want to have an experience where I'm at 25, 30K and I just the body breaks down, or I'm just, and it's just a slog. it's I've been there last year. It's such a miserable experience, and I think I coped better with making the decision of not doing it and refocusing my goals to something else in the summer, and then learning from the injury, building back, coming back stronger. But I'm not saying that I'm giving up hope now. I just I'm going week by week, and so the goal for me now in my head, and I'm not saying that I know I'm right here, but I will do the marathon if I feel I could get a 3:05. Like, I'm okay with sub 3 not happening, but I want a PB, so that's where I'm at.
Over to you, coach.
Well, a little bit of a trip away might help, and I think you've got one of those scheduled, have you?
No,
We've
you've
just been
gone back.
actually, yeah.
Oh,
We
yes,
just
yes.
got back. Yeah. So I, over the past few years, have been putting together some retreats in Portugal, and this year we made it a run-centric retreat, and we got Tommy Trees and Becky Briggs on board. Who Becky Briggs represented Team GB 4 times. She's about to go out to Delhi and run for Team GB in an ultra marathon. Tommy Trees is a 2:28 marathoner himself, and is a big influencer on socials, and so they hosted a retreat this weekend. Gab and I went along in Portugal, had about 30 odd people there from all different backgrounds, all different running abilities. We had 40-minute 5Kers to 16-minute 5Kers, and it was a great success. We had track session, shakeout runs, Q&A with the Tommy and Becky. We have social events, meals, quizzes, long run on the Saturday, thankfully some sunshine, and just an all-round amazing experience. And yeah, something I'll be looking to be behind the scenes on a few years to come. So Gab was there again, and good times, right?
Yeah, it was brilliant, and it's so infectious being around a group of people who love running. We're self-confessed running geeks, and we just talk pretty much about nothing else. Actually.
Yeah.
Don't know much about
Yeah.
But to be around other people who are there ready to indulge in running chat is great. But the big thing was that like where we were in the Algarve, there's like a man-made what's it called, boardwalk, where you can sort of run out and back, and we had 3 groups, like a quicker group, middle, and then slower, and then a few stragglers at the end, and everyone went off doing their own thing. And then as they sort of started to come back through from the different runs, everyone was there high-fiving, whooping and cheering everyone. And running's never been in a better place in terms of popularity, and it was really very infectious just being around everyone supporting each other. So I'd recommend it to anyone, really.
And it's a great way to freshen up if you're in a hard training block as well, to go away. Bit of a change of scenery, nicer weather helps, and as you said, the atmosphere and ambience to train with is a really big boost. Sounds like you're all kind of getting to a good place almost, Harry, and it does really feel like you've turned that corner. So fingers crossed it continues like that. Thank you both for the update. Gab, just keep going as you are going. And we look forward to catching up with you next time. Keep on with the calf races.
No, thank you so much, boys.
Well, thank you very much, boys. Hope this training is going to continue as it has done. Not too far to go now, so excited to see when we next catch up with you how ready you are for the race itself. Tomo, how ready are we for the 1 minute challenge? Whose go is it this week?
Well, yeah. Are you ready? That's
that means it's me then. Okay.
Yes, exactly. It's you. Producer's been very very kind with this one. I say that, very topical, but anyway, let's give it a go. You've got 1 minute. Right. And the question is, don't be nervous. Remember, get rid of the chimp paradox or the chimp. Right. The challenge is, in 1 minute, Paula's psychology of running. Did you try and psych people out, and did they try with you?
That's a good one. Actually, I'm a big believer that distance runners don't particularly need to play the mind games and try and psych anybody out. I think we're all of a similar mindset, and you actually psych yourself in rather by making sure that you're in the right place, coming in with that trust in your training, covering all of the bases. When you believe that you're really ready to go out and enjoy that race, and I think when you're ready to go out and have fun out there, that reflects in the psychology in there. So actually, I'm a big believer, and I'd probably go back to the first time I ran New York after Athens, and I was actually so relieved to be back going to the start of a race and feeling good, feeling healthy, ready to have fun out there. I remember Ray Flynn, athlete manager, actually managed Dina Castor at the time. He looked at me and he said, Paula, why are you the only person that looks as though they're enjoying this process of going out to the start line? And I didn't realize it, but probably I did freak a few people out that day because I was just happy to be there. And I think when that comes across, it's a little bit intimidating for the people that you're racing. So concentrate on your own psychology, enjoy what you're doing, and make the most of it.
You're very good at doing this in a minute. I could feel the crescendo getting to the minute as well, the way you went through that. It's very good. Very good. Because I think you're right. I think distance running in general, there is so much you have to deal with within yourself before you can start worrying about trying to inflict the psychology or
and it
impact
goes
other
on.
people.
It goes on for as long as it does. The event, the marathon goes on.
Yes.
So it's not like the 100 meters where I think there's a lot of mind games need to be played in the 100 meters, or they seem to think there needs to be, because you kind of got to impose yourself before, whereas there's plenty of time in the race to show what you've done well and what you're prepared and what you're good at within the marathon. Plus, we're actually really similar people, and I think there's a lot of respect amongst marathon runners for each other. So that psyching each other out, I'm not sure really. I mean, there's a little bit of like, oh, I'm feeling easy. Do you want to share my drink? There's a little bit of that goes on, but very, very little.
But also don't forget, like, to use your example of sprinting, you can lose a race when the gun goes.
Yeah.
You can't in a marathon. And so, even if you fall at the start of a marathon, it's not an issue if you go that extreme. So
long as your psychology's right. Long as you can flip into the Steve Peters moment and go, right, that happened, it's done, I'm getting on with it. You're right, you can come back from it. But if you let it, it could put you off.
But you are, I would imagine, again, using the sprinting analogy, for 10 seconds or 11, 12 seconds, you need to be 100% mentally on it. In a marathon, you ebb and flow, and there's almost an acceptance that you're going to go through bad patches, and so the start could be your bad patch. And so, making someone feel bad about themselves for a couple of minutes is not going to win you the race. It's how you battle out in the latter stages. And so, the only thing, and again, it's not necessarily, I feel like it feeds into, and I used to do this a fair bit, when I got to the latter stages of races, I did listen to my opponents, and I did try and work out where they were sitting, and then I would try and play games based on what I thought they were feeling. So I would do that, but it wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if it's quite psychology, but there certainly would be when you would surge, and you'd pick your moments to when you felt like they were having a bad patch. And so I would do that a lot, which I think you did as well, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, you listen, you take signs, and you try and work out without actually looking at them.
Yes.
What from all of the other things that are feeding in, what you can hear, what you can sense. You try and get a feeling for where they are energy-wise and how they're feeling during the race. And you obviously try your own psychology there at that point. Think, oh, well, I must be feeling better than them because I'm not breathing as hard as they are, or my feet aren't hitting the ground as hard as they are. And so little things like that, you try and psych yourself up more. But it's a good point. I mean, at this point in the training preparation, we're kind of really coming to crunch time. You're hitting maximum distance in your long runs, hopefully, certainly getting there. So it's really the time when people are feeling the most fatigue that you will do in this. So it's completely normal if you're really feeling like, okay, I'm dead at the end of my training week. All I want to do is just stuff my face, maybe get in a nice bath, Tomo, and get a good night's sleep and try and recover for the next day. But you're definitely trying to put in all of those building blocks, aren't you, to try and recover. And I think that's normal. So if you are feeling that way, please don't worry. That's what it should feel like at this stage. But kind of try and store up how you're getting through that, because I think that's a big thing to go back to then in the race. When things get tough, think, well, maybe it's not quite as tough as it was at week 11 when I was slogging through my longest run, or my next to my longest run, and it was pissing it down with rain. I was finding it really hard to keep going. Use those techniques, whatever you're finding to get you through the tough bits in training at the moment. Start thinking about those in terms of a strategy to use on race day.
Yeah, I think decision making is very tough at this stage because of the reasons you've just said around being tired, And there's also going to be an element of you're looking at the top of Everest, and I think Steve Peters was really good with that, saying you've got to not look at the top of Everest and focus what's in front of you. And I think we can start to see that sort of start line appearing in our back of our minds, and that can impact decision making. And I think that fear of failure can lead to bad decisions. And I think the thing that I would, and I'm not perfect and I wouldn't get this right, but something I used to try and do in terms of deciding to run, I would try not to make a decision on a fatigued mind. So I would try and sometimes I would think, right, just have a sleep and see how I view it in the morning, because you really do get marathon brain fog from the training, and trying to make the right smart decisions, or the best decision you can with as a fresher mind as you can, and not necessarily a fresh body. And I would often try to remind myself that I need to, sometimes when you get kind of pent up through the fatigue, is I need to bring myself into a neutral position. And I mentioned that to Steve in the chat around, in a marathon, I would try and calm myself down first before I implement whatever strategy I would use. So if it's a night's sleep when I'm trying to decide what I'm doing for training, or in a race, calm myself down, which might mean just slightly slow back, then think about the mind games within a race, or if it's in training, is that run smart? Do I need to pull back the amount? And then it's literally about the next step. So it's to use a bit of a cliche, is that get calm, redirect your focus, and then take one step at a time. And I would try and apply that through it. And everyone has their own ways of doing it, but that was just something it's not perfect, but you just don't want to make decisions under fatigue if you can. And that's not easy.
It's a really, really good tip to give out, I think. I mean, it actually reminds me something my grandma used to tell me about life. She used to say, every once in a while, step outside of your life and look back in from the outside, and make sure you're proud of the way that you're living your life, the way you're treating other people, and what you're doing with it. Because if you're not, the only person who can do anything about it is yourself, which was really good. And it's something I try and teach to my kids. But that kind of reminds you of that. You almost want to do that at this stage in marathon training, but with a bigger eye over the whole big picture. Am I covering all the bases? Am I ready to go in? Am I putting myself in the right position to go in and do myself justice come race day itself? And if you're not, there still is time to make those adjustments and to be okay on race day. And the other thing is listening to your body, isn't it? And that's what I think we've talked about before. I used to have a 10-minute rule where if you are tired and you're heading out on a training run, and you're not sure whether you should be doing it or not, it's that, do I push through it, or is that going to dig myself into a hole injury-wise, be at risk of illness, be at risk of injury, dig myself into a hole injury-wise? I always used to think, right, if I'm not feeling any better and I'm not kind of into this run after 10 minutes, then I will just go back and just take the day off, because I'm clearly just too tired to get enough out of it. 9 times out of 10, I would feel better during that first 10 minutes, especially if you're just running easy. That's all you're trying to do, is just keep ticking over. But if you're not, then I think it is. Sometimes the body sends strong enough signals that, hey, watch it, you're about to overcook it. And it's good to be enough in tune with your body to listen to it. It's not bottling out, it's being smart.
I think, you've used a good word there. It's not bottling out. It is just listening is not bottling. And my coach used to say that to me a lot, in a slightly different word, but yeah. It's that time again, Paula, where we need to thank our friends at Wild Nutrition, who have got another continuing great offer for us, for the Paula Run Club listeners, 50% off for 3 months.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one, Tomo. Wild Nutrition believe that your body is wired to absorb nutrients from food, and that's why they never use any synthetic fillers or binders, ever.
Yeah, they just use food-grown ingredients that are close to their original food form as possible, which are scientifically shown to be better absorbed and better retained by your body.
Exactly. And for the runners listening, their food-grown magnesium is a prime supplement to take if you're regularly physically active. It's important to help support normal muscle function.
Yeah, it really helps relax the body after intense exercise. It's also great in the evening to promote that physical and mental wind down before sleep, which is, as we all know, very important.
It's really important. And it's actually backed by a gold standard sleep study that found that food-grown magnesium increases sleep by 42 minutes per night and sleep quality by 32%. It supports your nervous system and psychological function while reducing that tiredness and fatigue, which we all want.
I was going to say, I think we can all identify with that and like to have a bit of that. It's great to know these products are founded by leading nutritional therapist Henrietta Norton, who's over 20 years in clinics inform every one of their products. They even have an all-women team of nutritional therapists who offer free consultations.
And Wild Nutrition are giving Paula's Run Club listeners an exclusive 50% off for 3 months and a free personal consultation with a nutritional therapist. So just go to wildnutrition.com/Paula to get started.
That's wildnutrition.com/Paula so you can feel the difference yourselves. Start 2026 rooted in wellness.
And now, Tomo, huge thank you to Heiko for coming on board as a main sponsor. They are the hydration company. Their slogan is they have hydration covered. It's a great product. I mean, it's a lovely balance of 6 electrolytes. And I love the way Catherine's explained, the founder, Catherine Wilkins, who's actually running the London Marathon for the first time. So wishing her the best of luck in the rest of her training there too. But she's explained about how it's trying to get the right balance of electrolytes so nothing's overloaded. And many of the products, I guess, today go really high on sodium. And you may not need that, and certainly for everyday life you don't. That's what I love about it, that it's good for the kids as well, going to perform at school all day and stay hydrated in that respect. It's a nice, palatable balance of those 6 electrolytes that are really important.
Yeah, it's not just the electrolytes. It also has essential vitamins that are essential for well-being and energy and immunity. And also the flavour is amazing. Like I'm a big fan of the mixed berry. They have tropical, but they're ready-to-go cans. Genuinely, I'm excited for people to give them a bash because they are lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I like the tropical as well. I do like the mixed berry, but the tropical's a good one. And we, of course, have that discount code for you. It is really simple, PRC. Head to their website and that will get you 20% off your purchases at drinkheiko.co.uk. And next week, Tomo, we have a nutrition special. So we've basically got 3 parts to that. We will be hearing from Heiko in terms of the importance of hydration and what's important to stock up on there. We will be having a blast from the past. We'll be touching base with Matt Lovell, a nutritional therapist who worked with both of us in our career on behalf of Pure Ionic, who'll be explaining the benefits of hydrogenated water and water filtration. And we have top chef and marathon runner, of course, Paul Ainsworth, with his top nutrition tips for supporting yourself through the training and race day itself. And you have another thing to bring us up to speed on.
Yeah, something that's really cool that came through. They're a professional illustrator called Dan Woodyer. He is doing a charity drawing of London Marathon, and he asked if he could put you and I into the illustration, which was very cool. He's done it's lovely. It will be posted out today. It's a very lovely thing he's doing, and very lovely video, very kind, very complimentary to both of us. And it's a fundraising project, Run London, Draw London for Oxfam. It's kind of like a Where's Wally type thing. So he's looking for donations, about £5 donation, and also £15, and you can actually get the finished artwork, and he will complete it come London. And he's actually taking character requests. So if you want to request someone to be put into it, you can do that. You can do that through his Just Giving page. If you go onto Instagram, Dan Woodyer, as his name, so Wood and then GER. Go on his Instagram. You can see the journey of the different days as he's putting together these illustrations, and we'll have a link through ours. You can find the Just Giving page and all the links. And like I say, it's raising money for Oxfam. And he was saying, he sees these conflicts and all these things going on in the world. He's just trying to do his little bit he can to help with things as kind of small as you can do in these situations. But he's a really good chap. It's a lovely piece, and it's great for us to be able to kind of give it a bit of awareness and do a bit of donation. And like I say, I thought you looked brilliant in the illustration, and we were actually, and I won't spoil it, but he actually included one of our regular guests on as well, which was lovely. If you do want to check out what I'm talking about and make a donation, please just head to his Instagram handle, which is just his name, Dan Woodyer. So it's Wood, spelt Wood, and GER. Have a look. All the links are there. Just Giving, all the information, and the lovely stories and the well-edited things he's got. So just head there and do a donation if you feel up to it.
Brilliant. And that is all we've got time for this week. Hope everybody's training is going super well. Don't forget, you can get in contact with us through our socials at Paula's Run Club. You can email to paula's.runclub@momentumbroadcast.co.uk, and you can get in touch, of course, on that WhatsApp +44 7564 747 914. This has been a Momentum production. Thank you so much for listening, and you can catch up with us, of course, on the Shakeout on Thursday, and we will see you with the main pod next Monday. Have a good week.
See you soon, guys.